Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Ibrahim Tara, the President of Africa. Good morning, Hakainde Hichilema. Good morning, Cyril Ramaphosa. And the EF leaders in South Africa, Julius Malema, and Zambia, Kasonde Mwenda. I greet you all in the name of Jesus Christ. I believe hand by hand with the 90 days national prayer, which I always put a sackcloth by 17 hours. Today being the preparation day for the Sabbath. Today is a half moon that is going to set this evening, beginning the 7th day Sabbath, according to lunar calendar. I invite you to join every day. And this evening, we are starting a fast until tomorrow evening, praying for Africa to unite, praying so that as we are talking about Satanism or Freemason, we can defeat the power of evil. I'm continuing to dig more deep into the subject of Freemason that has been reportedly practiced openly now in Zambia. I remember a few years ago, here in South Africa, one of a Satanist came out openly and said that we worship Satan, and those who are joining, let them join. I just heard recently that this man is no longer a Satanist, is now a Christian. I thank God for that. I have a little time to do a follow-up on that man who was a Satanist due to a lot of pressure in finalizing editing of these books, because I'm aid to produce a book for the late Eddie Kalungu, who died in fulfillment of prophecy. Not to be happy about his death, but I'm so sorrowful about his death. And this is the reason why, when I'm seated here, those who are supporting Hakainde Hichilema, they think that I'm an enemy. Those who are in support of colonial master democracy, of hatred and division, they think that I'm an enemy. Wellest, I'm sent to rescue. I said this is a rescue operation. When I wrote this book, it was a rescue operation. You know, rescue operation, airport trap. When I went to trap Chiluba at the airport, and I said, I come to reveal to you your enemies and your relationship with God. This was not a drama. It was a reality. Chiluba never wanted to listen. Chiluba thought I was his enemy. And he died wellest hosting a meeting at his residence for MPs that came from the PF SATA fiction and the MMD. His bodyguard died. He also died. I want to say that news around us, around him, said he even died on the bed where there was money, which he was dishing out for support against Michael Sata. So I want to say God cannot be dribbled. As Sata, sorry, as Chiluba said, Naliba Diribula, when he was referring to the third term that he rigged for Mwanawasa. He rigged the elections where Anderson Mazoka was supposed to be president, 2001. He rigged them. And he was proud of that. But when the court cases came forth, when he realized that even the Manawasa leadership could not protect him, he was willing to go and testify that he rigged the elections. Today, I'm speaking to save President Hakainde Hichilema from being used by the imperialists who pose themselves as donor countries, who pose themselves as partners in development, who pose themselves as bishops of Rome in order to enslave Africa. I've written here the story of the children of Israel that led them to slavery. The strong foundation of Freemason is the economy. They kill the economy, starting in your family, in the nation, and thereafter they offer themselves as solutions. You know, Africa is on fire. Africa is believing a democracy. That is a lie. Africa is actually at crossroads. Why has God raised me as he raised Jeremiah? People say that I must join politics. I'm not joining politics. I'm shedding light unto politicians. I'm a voice that raises the standard of the people. If you think God is not interested in politics because you're a Christian, that means you have something wrong in your mind. Your Christianity is a Christianity that is influenced by imperialists because they want to misrepresent God. All the kings that God was sending these prophets, he loved them. Meaning that God has a part, a role to play even in politics. There must be sanity. There must be godliness. Politicians must be able to know that there is God in heaven. That is the reason why he visited Nebuchadnezzar with a dream. And Nebuchadnezzar forgot the dream. All the sorcerers, all the seers, the fortune tellers, he summoned them. They failed to interpret the dream until one of them says there's a slave. Daniel was in exile when he interpreted the dream to Nebuchadnezzar. And he told him to say, you are the head. There will be another kingdom that shall come after you. After this one, there will be another kingdom that shall come. After this one, there will be another kingdom that shall come. And the last kingdom that Daniel explained, it was the mixture of what? Iron and clay, which is the time that we are today. After Babylon, Medo-Persia, Rome, and the clay and iron. That is Daniel chapter 2. We are in this generation that I'm explaining here today. You see, Satanism was controlling these kingdoms. I identified these kingdoms, the great metallic image, which was interpreted by what? By Daniel. Also the four great beasts. I talked about the head, which Nebuchadnezzar saw, which was of God. representing Babylon. A lion on chapter 7 of Daniel with eagle's wings, which was also representing Babylon. Also the beast and the arms of silver, which was representing Medo-Persia. On the other side, on Daniel chapter 7, it was identified as a bear. The belly and the thighs of brass, which was also the third kingdom of Greece, which was also represented as a what? As a leopard. The fourth was legs of what? Of iron. Fourth kingdom, Rome, which ruled from 168 BC to 470 what? 6 AD. This was also identified as a terrible beast. Now we find that the feet, part of iron and partly of clay. This is the 10 divided kingdom of modern Europe, which began from 476 AD to today, successors of Rome. That means the 10 horns. So we find that the other prophecies that are still pending is the stone which was cut out of without hands, which smoothed the image and broke it into pieces, which represent the second coming of what? Of Jesus Christ, putting an end to modern Europe, that is globalization. Behold, there came with the clouds of the heaven one like unto a son of man, for the judgment was set. So the stone that smoothed the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth, meaning that after the coming of Christ and the establishing of a new heaven and a new earth, this is setting of the kingdom of God on earth, setting the end to man's global village efforts. Denomination, kingdoms that shall not pass away nor be destroyed. That means when the Son of Man establishes a new kingdom, this shall not be destroyed. So now, I want to say that these leaders that I've mentioned in Babylon, they've been controlled by false prophets. That's why today you find that when truth is said, it is opposed by many who call themselves God, who call themselves God's people, or men of God, or prophets, because they do not want truth. They live by politics. They feed by lies, by supporting wrong things. So now, let me read page 32 of the rescue operation. I said, many political leaders tend to witchcraft or spiritualism. Let me start again. Many political leaders tend to witchcraft or spiritualism or Satanism or occult secret society like Freemason in order to obtain favors from their followers and to maintain their hold on political power or simply for monetary gain. So I read this in yesterday's what? Presentation. But I want to believe to say, in everything that I'm actually referring to, I'm simply saying politicians today, if you want to join politics, they tell you to say you have to go to seek your powers from under the ocean. I remember the time when I wanted to join boxing. Then someone told me to say, you cannot get a black belt without you be subjected to witchcraft, Satanism, Freemason. So this is what I want to establish, to say, when power is actually obtained through this organization, I want to tell you to say, this is where we find ourselves at crossroad. Africa See, democracy was brought with a lot of falsehood. It came to destroy through Satanism by presenting false gospel. Through Satanism by presenting false wealth. Today people, they cannot build homes until they sacrifice their children, until they sacrifice someone. When a king dies, they do not bury the king alone. They do kill others by putting them alive at the bottom before they put the king's casket on top of them. That is Satanism. We must reach a point where leaders, they must lead the countries without allowing Freemasonry to practice through their blessing, without allowing homosexuality through their blessings, without allowing human rights, which fights against God's commandment. I talked about exposing dark teaching. Today in Zambia, the SDA church is entangled in political support of Hakainde Hichilema. I've watched with sadness when they are lifting placards in support of Hakainde Hichilema and even campaigning for him. When I was in Adventist at that time, I said the coming of the UPND is not a blessing to Zambia because it has the Vatican support. Today we have churches that are actually members of World Council of Churches. These churches, they are in Satanism. I've written this book as an open letter to President Hakainde Hichilema to explain how churches are involved into Satanism and how SDA church is also linked to Freemasonry. Because when you are SDA, by keeping the Sabbath on a wrong date, on a wrong Sabbath calendar, on a wrong weekly cycle, without you knowing that Daniel chapter 7 verse 25 has been fulfilled, you are linked to Satanism. I wrote something here on page 137. I was talking about, I said, on the first paragraph, I said, so the SDA church is indeed in union with and cooperating with the NCC, National Councils of Churches. But this is not the only evidence of economical union of the SDA church with the YCC, whether direct or through membership of its various branches. Then direct conversation between the World Churches Council and the SDA church through official began during the mid-1960s, especially in 1966. This direct conversation led the SDA church leadership to push the church towards compromising the peculiar truth contained in the three angels' message of Revelation 14. Their goal was to ignore those doctrines which differed with other churches within the World Council of Churches, that is YCC, in order to teach only the doctrines held in common. The Adventist church today is better prepared to make common cause with these other evangelicals than at any previous time in history. That is the Ministry magazine, June 1966, page 19 to 20. So this compromise was actually from the beginning, from its creation. When you talk of SDA that reformed from the Baptist church, under Martin Luther and under William Miller. As William Miller movement grew, SDA also was born 1960 under Ellen G. White. But the compromise followed 6 years later. So let me continue referring to Review and Herald. These books are very available in the shelves of SDA pastors and in the bookshops. Whereas voted departmental plans to create a public image set salvation within the reach of the multitude, to place emphasis on the non-controversial truth shared in common with all Christianity. That is Review and Herald, December 18, 1968, page 16 to 20. Atom Council Action. I want to believe that in 2000, I was cautioned to say, is it 2000? Yes, 2000. I was cautioned not to preach against Catholic Church. And there was a camp meeting in the Central SDA Church, somewhere, Woodland, somewhere there, where it was said that anyone that is preaching against the Catholic Church will be removed from the church register. I remember Elder James Banda of the Central Church at that time, who were together. And when that announcement was given at that particular camp meeting, so I realized that what was happening was compromise. Catholic is the source of Freemasonry. Catholic is the source of Satanism. Why is it a source of Catholicism? Because it united politics and the church. Listen carefully. I'm not fighting anyone, but I'm simply exposing the truth so that lies can also be seen. False religion can also be exposed. It's not a matter of you praying and calling the name of Satan that qualifies you to be a Satanist. It's not a matter of drinking blood. It's not a matter of eating human flesh. It's not a matter of actually drinking human urine to say it initiates you to Satanism. It's a matter, according to Revelation chapter 13 verse 11, where politics and religion speaks like Satan. The beast that had two horns like a horn, two horns like a lamp, putting on lamps two horns, it spoke like a dragon. Meaning that once you join politics and religion, you say they are one, then you are in Satanism. Once you call Zambia is a Christian nation, you are already in Satanism. Once you call that the church must codify doctrine because these other churches, we should move together side by side, that means you are already in Satanism. Above all this definition, when you break one commandment, you don't need to drink blood in order for you to be linked to Satanism. You only need to commit either adultery or to lie or to break the Sabbath or to worship an image or a graven image. Then you are a Satanist. We want to narrow down because when you hear people flowing to read articles to say President Hakainde Hichilema is a Satanist or is a Freemason, I want you to narrow down not to focus on Hakainde Chilema, but to focus on yourself. Who are you? Which God are you worshiping? Are you keeping the 10 Commandments? If you are not, that means when you are pointing to anyone to say he's a Satanist, you are also pointing to yourself. The other fingers are pointing you. Let us narrow down. This deception of Freemason, it is not only based on the president. The communities are brought to xenophobia attacks because of this the colonial master education, free education, which makes people hate their fellow Africans. That's all in one box of Freemasonry. Division, hatred, religion divisions, having two main doctrines that needs to be brought in agreement with the devil somehow. When people stand up and say, when you talk about the 10 Commandments, the 10 Commandments are no longer there. I want to tell you to say today, understand it. I'm speaking as a messenger of God. The 10 Commandments is the moral law, which is even defines the court judgments today. When you kill, you are arrested because you have offended God's, you have actually broken one of God's law. So what is it that I'm trying to say? When we are saying Hakainde Chilema is linked to Freemason, and even you, when you don't keep the 10 Commandments, when you are not worshiping in truth, you are also at a very low level, but serious in the breach of God's law, then you are also a Freemason. So there's a need for us to pray for this president who are actually being deceived to join these organizations as a means of protection. Because when they don't join, they are being killed. When they denounce, they are being killed. So my prayer is that as we are having the 90 days prayer meeting, 17 hours, those who think Freemasonry is a source of prosperity, those who think Freemasonry is a source of protection, those who think Freemasonry is a source of all success here on earth, they are actually believing in the devil's doctrine, which the devil introduced to Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. That's where Satanism began from. So when we are talking about Satanism, we should not raise eyebrows. We should not be against anyone, but we should realize that we are saying this in order to make the world realize that globalization that is mounted and founded by the devil is actually something that is planned to divide Africa, something that is planned to divide the world, something that is planned to bring hatred and killings. Today, we need to realize when we are talking of Freemason, it's just something that it has been organized to promote evil in our mind. May God bless you. May God be with Hakainde Chilema and all African presidents, more especially President Tayorao and the EFF leaders that are championing the united Africa that can fight all these false doctrine. God can bear with me if I've not reached your heart in a soft way. But it's my prayer that may God guide Zambia to fight against this Freemasonry. South Africa, Zimbabwe, and all other countries, Uganda and Burkina Faso. God bless you. Thank you very much.